Hello and good evening for this last session at the third day of the Vienna Migration Conference 2020. I hope many of you had the chance to also visit the previous panel discussion on Schengen and EU asylum strategies for progress, which was a very vivid and very interesting discussion. And it focused very much on asylum issues, also issues that we will now address in this focus session. It came up with about the importance of fast and fair asylum procedures, and it also stressed the importance of border procedures and how this can work in a fast and fair way. This is a perfect start for this, our focus session, where we want to zoom in into accelerated or fast and fair asylum procedures. And of course, we have a strong link with the new pact on asylum and migration, which was tabled, as you for sure know, by the Commission on 23rd September, which strongly emphasized fast procedures also. It includes a very short and initial screening process to conduct a vulnerability assessment, security check, registration, but among also to look in which procedure the respective migrant can be or should be channeled and which is appropriate. But it also, the pact also foresees mandatory accelerated asylum procedures within the borders in certain cases, and here among others, there is for countries like if the recognition rate for the applicant's country of origin is below 20%, for example. And the whole direction of this pact goes into the direction of accelerating and faster asylum procedures. The coming very brief 30 minutes, we want to dedicate to this and explore a bit the potential of such short procedures. And we want to, as was said in the panel before, to have a bit of a reality check how such fast and asylum procedures can work. And we will look at this on the example of two quite different countries. On the one side, an EU country at the external borders, on the other side a non-EU country but landlocked by other EU countries, namely Switzerland and Greece. My name is Martin Wagner. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor Asylum in the Policy Unit at ICMPD. And unfortunately this year I welcome you here at a bit of an empty room. But I'm very happy that many of you follow us on the screen, and I'm particularly happy that two very knowledgeable speakers join me. On the one side, we have Thomas Segessenmann from the Swiss State Secretariat for Migration. The Swiss State Secretariat not so long ago did a reform of the asylum system with the aim to accelerate the asylum procedure. And we want to engage with Thomas very shortly about how this worked and about the lessons learned from this process. On the other side, we have Marios Kaleas joining us from the Greek Asylum Service, coordinator of Asylum Offices of Aegean Island, head of Regional Asylum Office of Lesvos. Of course, we know that Greece is at the forefront and has a particularly challenging geographical situation, but also with regard to a lot of expectations from the EU side to also swiftly operate at the external operations. For all of you who are following, I also would like to invite you to share your thoughts via social media. You can, under the hashtag ViennaMigConf, also share your opinion, your experiences in this regard. Without further note, I would like to immediately go into our topic of fast and fair asylum procedures, and I would like to address first Thomas. Switzerland rather recently changed its asylum system. I just introduced it before shortly. What were the main reasons for this reform? And what are the key cornerstones of this accelerated procedure that you have now started to build on? I would like to have a bit of your reflection on this, that we also see what we speak actually about when we speak about fast and fair asylum procedures. Please.
Yes, thank you very much. So the starting point for Switzerland for this revision of the Swiss Asylum Act was a broad consensus that long asylum procedures are both inhuman and expensive. So, I mean, it's stressful for people to wait for months or even years for their asylum decision, not knowing if they can stay in the host country or have to return to their country of origin. And on the other side, with the costs, it's so that we have less welfare costs if people who will not be granted asylum or subsidiary protection return quickly to their country of origin, or on the other hand, people who receive a protection status in Switzerland can start their integration process much earlier if they receive a quick decision. So that was like the start point on both sides for well-founded and manifestly unfounded claims. What we did in the end was we tried to copy the system of the Netherlands, where they already introduced accelerated procedure, but we had to adapt it to the situation in Switzerland, because as we all know, copy-paste hardly ever works. So we really have to take into account, and that will also maybe be important for Greece then, look at the situation in place, what you can use as instruments from other countries and what you can't use. The slogan for Switzerland was, for the new procedure, fast and fair. The objective of this new procedure is to increase the credibility of the asylum system and the transparency as well. And the key cornerstones of the systems are to treat the majority of the asylum claims within a maximum of 140 days in federal centers, and this including the return process and an appeals procedure. But a centralization, as in the Netherlands, wouldn't have been politically feasible in Switzerland. So we had to find a solution within the cantons and the regions of Switzerland. Another important cornerstone is that, as already mentioned, we take rapid decisions in manifestly unfounded claims as well as in manifestly founded asylum claims. Previously, we just had accelerated procedures for manifestly unfounded claims for applications with a low recognition rate. And a rapid positive decision is crucial for the acceptance and credibility of an asylum system, in our view. What we need for this new procedure is a clear structure and short deadlines. What we have at the moment is a 3 weeks preparation phase and 8 days from the audition to the decision, and 7 working days for the submission of a possible appeal. What's important as well in our system is the free legal protection from the beginning of the asylum procedure to safeguard the rights of the asylum seekers. Another important point is the independent return counseling and the return assistance. Early in the asylum process, we show asylum seekers all the options. So they have a counseling within the asylum procedure, they have a counseling for possible return assistance, return possibilities. And also what I heard in the session before, the question of return. A consistent enforcement of return decisions is also an essential element for a credible asylum policy, if it's an accelerated procedure or not. But as we know, if persons receive a negative decision rather early, it's easier for them to accept a negative decision and accept a return decision. That's just very short key cornerstones of the new Swiss asylum system.
Thank you, Thomas. This was already, you raised quite a few important points also, which we don't only see, of course, in the Swiss asylum system, we see it also in other systems. You mentioned actually the Netherlands, who were rather early with this accelerating of procedures with a very short, a few days lasting asylum procedure. And it became as a bit, many countries look at these systems and how they could work in practice. On the other side, in the session before, we also heard from Marios Kaleas about the Greek asylum system that also in Greece there are quite different elements of an accelerated or of a fast procedure done already or in place or in construction. So I would like to turn to you, Marios. Can you please, as Greece is an external EU member state, faces quite a lot of challenges here. What measures does Greece implement to have this accelerated border and asylum procedures? And what is actually your position on the proposed screening process? Because this is what we have in the pact, is a very, very short period of 5 days. It says, so what is your position about the feasibility and also a bit of a possibility check? Marios?
Yes, Martin. Thank you for the question. I would like to remind to our participants that the Greek government and the Greek Asylum Service is implementing the.
Thank you, Marios. I think you both mentioned timelines as one possibility to accelerate asylum procedures. This is, of course, one possibility, but I think this requires a certain amount of more of a package of other elements that are needed in order to proceed in a very short and efficient way. And I think we also mentioned, and I think Thomas, you mentioned at the beginning, the process not only needs to be fast, but it needs to be also fair. So I would probably like to turn to you back and ask you, what are the key preconditions? And I mean now for the environment to create such a fast asylum procedure. What are these elements that you need also to look at? And you mentioned already some of them, to bring in legal assistance, to have counseling as early as possible. But you also mentioned the courts, and this was also mentioned in the earlier panel discussion that we had earlier on. How can you bring them all together and work in one direction? Please, Thomas.
Yes. I mean, there are different preconditions for success. If you just look at the fastness of the procedure, it's more or less much of a question of sufficient and appropriate human resources, and not just asylum experts, but also interpreters, identification specialists, support staff, all the people that work together in the federal centers. And that's the main thing, because and you need not just the asylum experts, enough of them, but also enough interpreters, the right interpreters, because, you know, the chain breaks at the weakest link. And so with that system, when you try to have a fast procedure, it's a more complex procedure, because everybody has to be ready. When you work all together on one case to deal it quickly, then you really have to be sure that everyone's ready to work with you. And so this needs automatically needs more human resources than with a system when you just start with a case, then let him somewhere in a drawer. It's a big difference. And also sufficient and appropriate accommodation structures. I mean, like it was a big theme in Greece, but also nowadays in Switzerland with the Corona situation, where we need much more accommodation to still be able to proceed with our asylum procedure as we have it now. And also what we see today with Marios, with the connection from Lesvos, if you don't have the right IT support, all these things that you need for a much more complex system are crucial for success in a fast procedure. But the other thing you mentioned, the fair procedure, the second element we need, we cannot just make the procedure faster, but we also have to make sure that no one gets lost and all rights of the asylum seekers are respected. One important thing is the careful determination of the appropriate procedure, how to channel people into the right procedure and to make sure that people with cases who need further inquiry are treated in a normal procedure, not in an accelerated procedure. That's one of the main topics to guarantee this correct channeling. The other thing is the free legal assistance. What we have in Switzerland right now is a free legal counseling and a free legal representation from the beginning of the procedure at the end of the procedure in the federal centers. And the representative of the asylum seekers takes part in every procedural step. And what's also important is the possibility to make a statement on the draft decision before the decision is taken. So we have the possibility to eliminate formal deficiencies of the decision before it is taken. And with that, we can also diminish the number of appeals. So we are also the decisions are more easily accepted because they really all the questions, what should be asked in the audition, what should be part of the asylum decision is already part of the statement on the draft decision. And then we also have the continuous consultation of on the prospects of success, also an important thing. So to increase the transparency of the procedure, to really, with every step, the representative informs the asylum seekers what should he bring as proof to have better chances in the process, or what are his chances in the process after each step. These are really the main points for us as preconditions for success. There are other points that are important, but just these few mentioned.
Thank you very much for highlighting also the connection with legal assistance and how this can also foster the asylum process as a general thing. And I understand it's a free legal assistance that is provided for every asylum seeker who is in the process. I also want to draw back on what you meant, what you spoke about staffing. Staffing, that this is a crucial element. It does not help to ask for fast asylum procedures if you have case workers who are overloaded with cases. And I think this is a good point to go back to Marios. Actually, on the one side, in Greece, there are also there's a lot of support with by EASO, by other member states. And I would also like to draw a bit on these experiences that you faced there. How is the cooperation? And is this also something like a blueprint or a good practice that you see in Greece at the moment for also supporting each other within the European Union under the cover of solidarity also? Marios, I hope you are with us.
Yeah, I hope too, Martin. I was hearing Thomas' presentation, and it is impressive the situation that he presented about the current situation in Switzerland. However, I have to say that there are significant structural differences among the two countries, Greece and Switzerland. Before a big part. Yes, can I go on?
I think the connection is very weak. You are unfortunately off and on. Probably my colleagues will try to fix the connection with you, Marios, and I will continue shortly with Thomas, and we will reconnect one more time with you, Marios, okay?
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, so let's turn back to you, Thomas. I think what is interesting for me also, how did you start this reform? How did you when you decided to change the asylum procedure, how did you do the steps? I know that you had a short period where you tested it and you shortly integrated into the normal process. I think this is also something when we go into the pact and how it can be implemented. How did you do this from the practical side?
Yes, that's one of our special points in Switzerland we had with this legislation. I think it's a unique opportunity that we had that we were allowed to test on a small scale this new procedure at a test center in Zurich for about 4 years before we started the new system. So that was, but the beginning of the process was just, we had also an overload of cases, and we had to, and everybody said, okay, the procedures are too long, what can you do? And it was like, in our federal system, it's like, always the other authority is at fault. And so we got together and said, okay, we have to deal this asylum problem, the integration of people, the return, and everything together. And so it's really a consensus to work together to get to a new solution, to that everybody helps to get the structures, all the centers in all the regions, and to get to this point that we have a fast procedure. But we had to convince everybody that this really works. And we had just this one chance, and we got this permission to test it. And that was the big deal, that we also, in a popular vote, that about more than 60% of Swiss population voted for the new Asylum Act, which was really a special situation for Switzerland. And this was due to the fact that we could prove that this new system would work, that we could get much faster and we had less appeals. And that was the convincing point, and I think crucial for this new system, that now, of course, when you implement it in all over a country, it gets new problems, and we are not already at the point where everything works smoothly, but we're on a good way.
Thanks, Thomas. I will shortly, I think this, I like this, and I had the chance to also see it when it was tested, the new system, and I also quite was impressed to have this parallel one, and then you could evaluate the new one. And then you shortly, step by step, introduced it into the normal procedure. I particularly also think that it's interesting approach that you have in Switzerland with this mindset that asylum procedures are in general short, and only if this is really not manageable, then we have an extended procedure. I think this is a very, very interesting mindset also that you not have a long procedure, and you filter out just only that are possibly faster, manageable.
I think that's very important for the acceptance of the asylum system for like both political sides. So if everything works faster, it's good for everyone. It's good for asylum seekers. It's good for the country itself. But because all this investment I told you before, the important investments we have to do in staffing, in long term, it should get cheaper, because when you really have a fast system that works, then you have much less welfare costs, and in the end, at least in Switzerland, that's the important amount, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can hire a few asylum experts if you don't have to pay welfare costs for a person who stays in Switzerland for about 2 years and then has to leave the country. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's cruel for the person concerned, and it's not really worth spending the money if you could have treated an easy case within a few weeks. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense for anyone. I think that is the acceptance in the population to see, okay, we want to be sure that people in need of international protection get this protection quickly. We want to be sure that people who are not in need of international protection return to their home country quickly. Mm-hmm. That's the easy deal. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Thomas. I think we are still trying to get back the connection with Marius, but this gives me probably, we were promised to have 5 more minutes, and for the audience, I would hope that you bear with us. I think there are still quite some very interesting points that we would like to discuss with our Greek colleague. But Thomas, just one thing, probably from your side, if you have the chance to also recommend from your side, from the Swiss practice that you went through. I think you mentioned one crucial thing. Copying good examples is not possible. It needs to be tailored. I think this is a crucial point always when we see good practices and learning from others. But what you see is the most essential. We did not touch yet upon all under one roof and shorten ways. This is, I think, also one element of the Swiss procedure. Probably also reflect shortly on this. We have still a bit more time, and we will also try to get a connection with Marius one more time. But please, could you have a few kind of, what would be your advice to start with?
It's always difficult to give advices. As Marius mentioned before, there are quite a few structural differences between Switzerland and Greece. But if I could give advice on how this new procedure could be designed, then I could say that it's important to take into account the appeals authority. It doesn't make much of a sense if you treat the asylum claims very quickly, and then the courts are not able to treat the appeals also quickly. I mean, in the end, no one, if you can't finish the procedures, then it's not worth trying to be that fast in the first instance. If the second instance has not enough staff, has not enough possibilities to treat the appeals quickly. That's one of the important things. Another thing maybe is the flexibility of the system that has to be implemented. As we see, if we have short deadlines, they are important to have a clear structure that everybody knows in this system, all under one roof. If you have everybody together, they all have to know at what stage of the procedure it's their time to work on the case. But then again, you have to look closely on each case, and if you have to need 2 more days to finish the treatment of a case, and just because it says normally you have 8 days, so maybe you should take then 10 days to finish the procedure and not channel an easy case into a normal procedure because it's so ineffective. So we have to have enough flexibility within such a system, even if it's clear structured, even if you put everyone together under one roof, so they can have short ways to work together, especially now in Corona times, which is not short ways, are digital ways now. But in the end, really to cooperate together, but have flexibility in that more complex system with these much actors in the procedure.
Thank you, Thomas. It is, I think, part of a life program is that it might be that not all technical issues can work smoothly, and I just learned that there is some stormy weather in Lesvos, and Marius told before that he had already some technical issues before. I'm very sorry that we don't have more from our Greek colleague. For me, it would have been particularly interesting to also hear from the Greek perspective. I think it depends very much, and this was also mentioned in a panel before, what kind of caseload would be there, what kind of countries of origin take up the most asylum applications in a country, because if we have rather complex cases, and in Greece, these are the top countries are Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq. These are all not cases that are so easily handled in short term, particularly in short procedures. Very sorry that we could not connect this side of our focus session more, but I will try anyways to take a few of the things that I noted for me. I think fast procedures are, I think it was mentioned also, are important for both for applicants, that they have more security about the further faith and the further future actually. But also for states, and it was mentioned, the integrity of migration procedures or asylum procedures is part that this is done in an overseeable time. I think another thing is that fast and fair must not or is not a contradiction. I think they can work with each other, but they need also to be embedded in an environment that allows this. For example, legal assistance that accompanies the procedure. And I think what we also saw is that fast procedures cannot be created in a vacuum, but they need these complementary measures. And you mentioned at your last intervention also to also bring the appeals system on board, but also very practical issues like interpreters. They must be on time and they must be shortly available. I think these are all necessary ingredients of such fast asylum procedures. With this, I would like to close this focus session. I'm really sorry that Marius could not share his experiences with us. I hope we can, in one way or the other, probably in our recaps, probably feed in some of statements from Marius, from the Greek perspective. And with this, I would like to conclude and hope to see many of you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. When we open the final day of the Vienna Migration Conference, and we will start with migration cooperation between EU and Turkey, a very interlinked topic to ours today. And I hope that you will be able to follow us, and please also look at our VMC webpage with recaps of each of the sessions. And with this, I would like to conclude. Thanks a lot to Thomas and Marius. I hope you hear us at least. And I wish you all a nice evening. Thank you for being with us. Welcome to this post-recording to the focus session which we held on 18 November on accelerated asylum procedure. Unfortunately, during this focus session, we had connection problems with our Greek speakers, Mario Kaleas. And we decided to have this post-recording to also capture the perspective of Greece on this very important and very often mentioned issue of accelerating asylum procedures. I hope the connection works now, Marius. I'm very happy that you are with us. Marius Kaleas is coordinator of asylum offices in Aegean Islands, head of regional asylum office of Lesvos, Ministry of Migration and Asylum. Marius, in the focus session, we spoke that the new pact on migration and asylum puts a lot of emphasis on accelerated asylum procedures. It includes this very short screening procedure plus an accelerated procedure under border procedure. We spoke also with Thomas Segessenmann from the Swiss State Secretary about the Swiss experiences with short procedures. And we concluded that, in principle, short, fast and fair asylum procedures are good for both. For the asylum seeker to have a clear perspective in a foreseeable time, but also for the state when it comes to preserving the integrity of asylum systems. We also concluded that fast and fair is not a contradiction. It can be both. But then it requires also an embedment in an environment that allows for such fast and fair procedures. And we spoke a bit about legal assistance. We spoke about including the appeals instance. We also spoke about the availability on spot of interpreters. Now, on the letter, and before we lost, unfortunately, the connection, you started also to talk about, or you emphasized the point that fast and fair procedures also require or depend very much on structural and institutional realities. And I would like to start this post-recording now with asking you, can you a bit more elaborate from the Greek perspective what you meant with that and how you see this potential of accelerated procedures?
Thank you, Martin, for your question. First of all, I have to say that I totally agree with your comments. Now, and as regards Greece, I would like to remind that we are implementing since 2016 the common statement that it was signed among the member states and the Turkish Republic. According to this statement, all the irregular migrants entering Greece have to remain in the 5 islands of the Aegean Sea until the further and final examination of their cases. This practically means that all the irregular migrants are literally geographically restricted in these 5 islands of Aegean Sea. There is no free movement for them, which as a consequence leads to a direct decline in the number of the flows and the new arrivals in Greece and in Europe in general. But on the other hand, it creates a lot of tensions here in Greece and specifically in the 5 islands of the Aegean Sea. There are tensions among the local communities and the asylum seekers. The locals from one side complain, the asylum seekers, for the loss of their income that it was based on the tourism. On the other hand, the asylum seekers are trapped in these 5 islands and they are seeing that their hopes and expectations are falling down. So the big challenge for the Greek Asylum Service is to accelerate with the cases in order to prevent all these tensions. We are giving emphasis in the international conventions and, of course, in the human rights, both of the asylum seekers and the residents of Greece. In particular, on November 2019, there was a new migration law that was passed by the Greek parliament. The law focused on the acceleration of the asylum procedures. It tries to prevent the abuse of the asylum system, because in the past there were many cases of asylum seekers that were applying and reapplying in order to cancel the decisions of deportation. In addition, the new laws prioritize specific cases, specific groups of asylum seekers. It is the first time in Greece that there is an extensive list of safe countries. This implies that we consider some countries as safe, which means that we do not consider that the third country nationals are being at risk of persecution in these countries. We are also implementing in Greece the concept of safe third country. In particular, we consider that Turkey is a safe country for the Syrians. We consider that Syrians can be provided with all the guarantees, all the means of international protection if they apply in the Turkish Republic. And of course, there is a third category of asylum seekers, those that came to Greece searching for a better future in order to have a better life for them and their family members. The profile of these asylum seekers is not compatible with the refugee status, is not compatible with the 5 criteria of Geneva Convention. So for all the above cases, we are accelerating the examination of the applications within 20 days from the first day of the registration till the notification of the decisions. So, as I said, we are implementing a series of structural and institutional measures in order to speed up and cover all this workload.
I see that you work a lot in the core of accelerated asylum procedures, reflecting very much on unfounded, how to deal with unfounded applications, and you also raised the prioritization. At the end, you also emphasized actually the institutional setup that is also something very important. And I would like to come also to this point, because this was also something we heard from the Swiss example. Now, Greece is a bit more specific in this regard. There is also quite a big presence of EASO in Greece. Also, member states provide support with experts. And I would probably like to reflect very shortly on that and would invite you to tell us a bit your experience about this cooperation. because it is also, you know, under the new pact, there's also quite an emphasis on solidarity. And under solidarity, we know it's a flexible system should be there. And one of the possibilities is also to provide expertise or to provide capacities to countries that are particularly under pressure. Do you see also from this perspective with the acceleration of procedures, do you see there also a potential from the Greek case that you saw, I think you mentioned before, since 2016?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's true that EASO, the European Asylum Support Office, operates in Greece since 2016. There are numerous employees of EASO that are working on behalf of the Greek Asylum Service. Most of them are case workers who examine the cases. They are conducting the interviews and drafting the decisions. Additionally, there are a lot of interpreters, administrative staff. They have a strong presence in Greece since 2016. Of course, at the beginning, there were some difficulties in terms of cooperation, productivity, and procedures. It was reasonable because it was the first time that something like this happened. But once we managed to find a common path, a common channel of communication, everything became easier for us. Now I would say that EASO is an integral part in the Greek asylum procedures. This innovation proves the necessity for the existence of a common asylum system in Europe, a system that will allow all the member states to follow the same procedures, and a system that will let the asylum seekers to have the same treatment regardless of the country that they will apply for international protection. So yes, it's true. I'm very glad that I'm cooperating with the members of EASO, and I hope that this will extend to the other member states as well.
I think on your last remark, I think I sensed also a bit like you have a bit further expectations towards a common European asylum system. So a system that is really everywhere applied in the same way, so that the adaptation of EU member states experts who are sent to other countries are more limited to not needing too much of further introduction to a new system, right? Mm-hmm. Did I understand that correct?
Yes, totally.
So taking this, and I would also still like to have one last comment from your side, actually, on the new pact. I wonder, we spoke a bit about the support by other member states, but what is from the infrastructure side, from staffing side? You also spoke a bit, such fast and fair procedures need to have an environment, need to have the realities, the local realities. And you said the local realities, you referred very much to tensions that are on the island because it's a limited place where people are living together. But if we go more from the procedural perspective, and if you look for the pact, for the further negotiations that are here, from a practitioner side, what do you see are the main elements to really succeed with a fast and fair asylum procedures? What needs to be there? Is it financial? Is it a closer cooperation with a network of interpreters? What is there from your perspective that is required? And probably if you could summarize this in your final statement with a view to the new pact.
Yes, but first of all, we have to realize that there are no magic recipes, neither magic sticks as regards the solution or the management of the migration issue. Migration is here and will remain here. So there are only good practices that we can follow in order to make our life easier. From my point of view, the cornerstone is our human resources. We have to invest in our human resources. We have to train the colleagues, the employees working in the migration field. We have to assure that there are decent working conditions. Good logistics, okay? Of course, the nature of our job is associated with the provision of interpretation. We are also needs a lot of lawyers providing free legal aid. It's very important for us to organize every step of the procedure. We need good organization. However, sometimes because we are facing urgent situations, we have to be flexible. We have to try to find alternative solutions. At the end, I have to say once more that migration is not a local problem, it's not a national Greek problem, it's a European issue, and as such, we need European solutions.
Thank you very much. I think this is a good final word for this post-recording, and it brings us also back what Thomas Segessenmann from the Swiss Secretary also said. Irrespective of how the system works, it needs quite a portion of flexibility always aside in order to respond to ad hoc realities. Thank you very much, Marios, that you stood ready for this post-recording. I'm very happy that we also were able to capture the Greek perspective of this. And I would like to conclude this session and wish you still a nice further day. I'm very glad that the connection worked this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin, for the invitation. I hope we had more time in our disposal, but okay, thank you.
And I hope we will have the possibility to follow up and also bring it together again with our Swiss colleague to exchange on some different practices and possibilities. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.